All right, Amal, we're going to continue our bold previews. These are wildly popular. We put them up on the YouTube channel in video form. So if you want a 2 to 4 minute look at each game from Amal Shaw's perspective, and I throw a few things in there too, you can go to YouTube and check it out. Duke's Mayo Bowl. Duke's Mayo Bowl. That is Thursday, kicking off at 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, 11:30 on the East Coast in Charlotte, North Carolina, Bank of America Stadium, with two teams from the Carolinas, the University of North Carolina and Mac Brown, and the University of South Carolina. Both teams, all come in 6-6. Tremendously disappointing year for the Tar Heels in the fact that they were ranked 10 before the season, remember, ranked number 10 in the AP poll, and then they had that opening game at Lane Stadium that they got beat to open the college football stadium as the Hokies entered to Sandman. And then, of course, the Heisman campaign of Sam Howell, which never really got off the ground. They did beat Wake Forest in a game that was a non-ACC game that got Wake Forest to the title game in a real shootout there. But otherwise, a very disappointing season. South Carolina with home victories over Auburn, a depleted Auburn team, and the University of Florida on their way to 6-6 and a tie for fourth in the SEC East. The Tar Heels are a big favorite in this game, Amal. 9.5 with a total of 58.5.
I think it's too big of a number. I think when you look at South Carolina, Shane Beamer's team has rallied later in the season. They've been far more impressive than they started off. When you look at North Carolina, 4 of the 6 wins this year, they've scored at least 45 points. 3 games they've had 58 points or more. Really impressive. But, Mike, you mentioned that Virginia Tech loss at the start of the season. They win the next 2 against Georgia State and Virginia after that. Since that point in time, since the Virginia victory, they've alternated win-loss, 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 win-loss through the rest of the season. They end up losing the final game of the year to NC State. And I'd say that was a catastrophic loss. You've got a 9-point lead with a couple of minutes remaining. Just a huge loss in that one. So just something to pay attention to. How are they emotion this one? By the way, if you haven't seen Downs, the wide receiver, Josh Downs for North Carolina, this kid's unbelievable. I think he's going to be a great slot receiver when he gets to the NFL. Still got another year at Carolina, but Sam Howell and him could have a big day offensively. But on the flip side, I think the South Carolina team, the big concern I have is at quarterback. Dottie's been inconsistent, but can they find it in the running game? That's going to be the key for them. Zadarius White has done a nice job in terms of running the ball at times this year. But they got hot towards the end of the season. But again, inconsistent. They get shut out by Clemson. Missouri they lose to on the road by 3 in Como. They've competed against some teams. I still think, though, the win over Auburn's probably a far better defense than you're going to see out of Carolina. So I think taking the points here is probably the play.
Talk about that NC State game to close out the year in Raleigh. Up 9 with a minute 38 to go. I was watching it here on the big screen at Circa. Up 9 with a minute 38. NC State had the ball on their own 30-something, like 40. They give up a 60-yard touchdown pass and then the onside kick. And NC State scores immediately. And North Carolina actually had like 30 or 45 seconds left to try to come back, and that was devastating. Also, you mentioned the opening loss to Virginia Tech, and then they win 2 games, and then they get routed in Atlanta by Georgia Tech. Maybe the worst loss on the schedule.
It really was. That game, and I'll tell you, I remember that one distinctly because I had North Carolina second half. I was so happy with the way they played in that third quarter. I knew I didn't have to watch any more of it 5 minutes into the second half. It was just an absolute dead loser. No effort from Mac Brown. Mike, they were so desperate, they went for it on their own 35 in the 5 minutes to go into the third quarter.